grab your Bible and a Diet Mountain Dew because it's time for the Brother Byron podcast. Listen in as Brother Byron brings you thought-provoking insights from his 30-plus years in the ministry. Now here's Brother Byron.
Hello, friends. It's Brother Byron, back with another Brother Byron podcast. I guess y'all thought I was long gone. It's been a while since I've had a podcast. I think maybe last Thursday, possibly. This is episode number 72, and today it's Saturday, March the 22nd, 2025. Can you believe that? Wow, this year is flying. I believe this is, the 81st day of the year already? And so that means there's only 29 more days until Easter. And then there's 280 days or something like that until Christmas. It'll be here before you know it. I took the first part of this last week off from my secular job. Mary and I went and celebrated our 40th wedding anniversary. We went out of town for a day and spent some time together and just, tried to enjoy ourselves there for the Monday through Wednesday. And then I had to go back to work. And since I do work from home every day except Tuesdays and Wednesdays, I was working from home, but boy, I was covered up. I don't know how many emails I had to look at and reply to and things to catch up on. So I've been busy. And I've actually sat down here almost every day this past week to try to do a podcast. And I've gotten as far as putting the date down on I keep some notes here in front of me so I don't get completely lost. And I'd get as far as putting the date down and then, just, I don't know, just didn't have the enthusiasm. Wasn't anything pressing on my mind or anything to talk about. And so every day I just changed that date to the next day until here we are Saturday on March 22nd. Church went good Wednesday. I got there a little early so me and Brother Scott could finish up mounting our automatic projector screen. We put it up in the baptistry. You can't see it unless it actually came with a remote. You hit the remote and that thing comes down zzz, like that. Well, it's slower than that. I told Scott I was going to put a power booster on it or something, turbo booster, and get that thing down quicker. But it comes down there in the opening to the baptistry so that we can, show things on there. Like if a missionary comes and they have things to present on a slideshow or, a PowerPoint, then we can do it on the screen. And I have got a few other things I want to do up there, some special things. I'm not one that's big on putting the screens up in the church. I feel like people focus too much attention upon the screens instead of paying attention to what's real and going around you. If you're going to do that, you might as well stay at home and watch church on the screen. And people say, well, you can put the words to the songs up there and people don't have to hold a book. Well, that's another reason I don't do it, because I think you ought to hold that hymn book in your hands and sing them songs. I don't like all this other stuff. Call me old fashioned or a fuddy-duddy or whatever you want. I'm not into that. I'm not the 7-Eleven guy, same 7 verses 7 times with your hands like this while you're looking at a screen. That's not me. Anyhow, but we had good church service. We were in part 10 of our Rooting Through Romans Bible study series, and I got to preach on one of my very favorite verses of the Bible, Romans chapter 1, verse 16, where Paul says, "For I am not ashamed of the gospel of Christ, for it is the power of God unto salvation to everyone that believeth, to the Jew first, and also to the Greek." And so we expounded upon that verse and talked about what it meant and also how it applies to us today. The Bible is just, it's so relevant. People say, well, it's an old book, what good is it? The Bible is just as fresh and relevant today than it was 2,000 years ago. But anyway, good church service. I can't even talk today. And so, yeah, I was going to talk just a little bit today. I'm not going to be very long, but me and Brother Jonathan were messaging back and forth. We burn up Messenger. We message back and forth about a lot of things. And, so we were messaging today, this afternoon, and he made mention about looking for some new Bible commentaries. And I hadn't thought about it in a long time because it's so difficult to find anything good these days, good Bible commentaries written by people that you can trust and rely upon. And I've not really looked into them that much recently. I did in the past, but I always go back to the old Bible commentators. And, I was talking to this also with my brother-in-law, John, about, a couple of weeks ago. They were traveling through here, going to Pigeon Forge, and they stopped here at the house for just a little bit. And me and him were talking about that same thing, about commentaries. And we made the mention that we were discussing that there's no good, like, independent fundamental Baptists that are producing Bible commentaries, and that everything that you get nowadays are really from Reformed writers. And, I got to thinking about that. And, even the older commentaries, almost all of them are Reformed writers. The Puritans, of course, being Reformed. But as I was thinking about that today, I was kind of doing some research, and I've got a lot of commentaries. They're mostly older ones. And, but I got to thinking about it. Do I have anything really good from, just a good straight Baptist, preacher that I trust that has written commentaries? And sadly, no. And you can't hardly find them. So, I was just looking at what I do have and what I use. And I've always told you I use eSword a lot. That's a software you can get on your computer, and you can download tons of commentaries, especially the older ones. They're not under copyright or anything any longer. And so I've got probably, 25 to 30 different commentaries that I've downloaded of these older commentators and or commentary writers. I don't know if commentators is the right word. Makes me think of taters. Now I'm getting hungry. But anyhow, so, even you go back to Charles Spurgeon, the Prince of Preachers. Charles Spurgeon was a Calvinist. He was Baptist, but he was what we would consider Reformed. He did hold to the tenets of Calvinism, although he is much like, I believe, like John MacArthur's Calvinism. They're not hyper Calvinists by any means, but they still do hold to those tenets, and they kind of steer you that way. But Charles Spurgeon, yeah, he's, I've got tons of his books, and I read those and study them, and I love them. I like to read his sermons and I really like them. But then I was looking at the other lists that I have that I use. Now, of course, John Calvin. I don't use a lot of Calvin's commentaries. I do have it on eSword. And of course, the term Calvinism actually derived from John Calvin and his theology. He was a French theologian. But he was Reformed back in the Protestant era. And he was not the one that came up with the term Calvinism. In fact, he didn't like the term, but that is what they label it. And so anyone that is considered Reformed is really a Calvinist. They hold to the John Calvin's, 5 tenets of Calvinism, the tulip. But anyway, I was looking at others that I have and that I really use a lot, like Matthew Henry. Matthew Henry has one of the greatest commentaries. Even Charles Spurgeon, if you read his writings, he mentions that as well. He was a Reformed Puritan. Great stuff. Matthew Poole, he is another Reformed Puritan, much like Matthew Henry. John Gill, he's really considered a hyper Calvinist, and he's got some good stuff. And, I refer to his stuff a lot. Adam Clark, he's kind of on the same lines as that. He wasn't really a Calvinist. Actually, he was more Arminian, and he was a Methodist, and he held to the teachings mainly of John Wesley, but he's got some good stuff out there. Arthur Pink, of course, the Puritan Reformed Congregationalist is what he really is. He's got a ton of stuff out there. But he is reformed. And then, of course, the Jameson Fawcett Brown commentary. All three of those men were Calvinists. Jameson, Fawcett, and Brown. That was three different men, by the way. I believe they're out of the Church of Scotland, I believe. And of course, there's more even modern day writers or men who wrote commentaries, such as my beloved Martin Lloyd-Jones. You're getting tired of hearing about him, I'm sure. He was a Welsh Congregational Reformed minister. But boy, he's got some fantastic stuff out there. And I've got behind, you can't see him right now, I don't have the camera turned over there, but I've got that big set of his Romans commentaries over there. Then there's James Montgomery Boice. He was a Reformed Presbyterian. I've got a set of his back here. And then, of course, John MacArthur. He's Southern Baptist, I believe, but he's Reformed. He's a Reformed Baptist. And probably his writing is probably some of the very best in this century that you'll find. I mean, the man is brilliant when it comes to, discerning the things in the Bible, but he does hold to the tenets of Calvinism. But like I said, he is much like Charles Spurgeon, where he's, it's not that, I can't remember the term that I heard MacArthur say one time, but it was like, I don't know. He says, I believe in whosoever will, and however God does that, that's up to him. And so that's really the way I feel as well. But John MacArthur, he's a Calvinist, Reformed, and so was Stephen J. Lawson, who is no longer in the ministry. He did, by the way, speaking of Stephen J. Lawson, he did come out last week with a video and a I'm not going to say an apology. He was repenting, but he came out and told everything and told how he was getting help and such. And so I was glad to see that and hear all that. But he's Reformed too. He's a Southern Baptist. It's a Reformed Baptist. And then there's like R.C. Sproul. He's got a lot of great stuff out there, but he is a Reformed Presbyterian. What is it? Ligonier Ministries that he's over. And you can go to Ligonier Ministries and find tons of good information and stuff out there. Al Mohler, he's a Reformed Southern Baptist. Hear his name mentioned a whole lot, and he's Reformed. And of course, John Piper. I don't really read much of Piper or listen to him at all, really. I know he's from Tennessee. A lot of these men are actually from Tennessee. And by the way, Stephen J. Lawson is living in Nashville, Tennessee now. So, and he goes to a church out there, a Reformed church. And also one person I'll mention here in a minute, J. Vernon McGee, he was also out of Tennessee. But I've used all of these men's commentaries at one time or another. I may not use them, frequently, but I have referred to them and looked at them. And as I've mentioned before, when I'm like preparing a sermon, I don't go read a Bible commentary and then prepare my sermon outline. I prepare my outline and my message and everything, get finished. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm done with it. And then I go back and look at what other men say. And if there's things that they say that I think will be helpful, then might make a note about it or, something like that. But I don't write, my sermons off of commentaries, but I do enjoy them. I like reading them. But these Reformed writers, you got to be very careful, especially when you get back into the Puritans. As my brother-in-law John said, he said it's like walking through a minefield sometimes. And that's the truth. You just got to kind of chew up the meat and spit out the bones. And, sometimes it gets tiring after a while. So it'd be nice to have some men that would wrote some commentaries that you could just trust and rely upon. I mean, C.I. Scofield, I use a Scofield Bible that I preach from. I don't use his notes because there's a lot of stuff that he said in there I don't agree with. And so I don't hold to everything that he says. But there are some men that I do trust. And as I mentioned, J. Vernon McGee. Yeah, he was a Presbyterian, but he was not a Calvinist. He's got great stuff. Of course, he had the Through the Bible radio program, which his Through the Bible commentary set is based off of. So it's more like sermons throughout that book. It's not in the traditional type of commentary, but it's very helpful. And my dad is the one who introduced those to me when I first was called to preach. My dad, of course, he was a teacher, and he had a set of J. Vernon McGee's Through the Bible. And he told me, he said, you need to read through these. And he said, they'll greatly help you. And so I did, and I loved them. I bought a set. Actually, somebody else gave me another set. So I had 2 sets at one time, and I gave one away. But they are so extremely helpful. They're great because they're just on every man's level. You don't have to be a brilliant scholar or went to seminary or anything to understand J. Vernon's stuff. And so I really like those. Oliver B. Green, of course, he being an independent fundamental Baptist, I can rely on everything he says. He didn't really have a commentary set, but he wrote over 100 different books based on books of the Bible. And at one time I had all those, and I believe I gave them to Brother Jonathan. When I left Highland, I didn't have room for all the books I had. And so one day I invited Brother Jonathan over, and I had them all out there. And I said, if there's any of these that you want, you can take them. I believe he got those Oliver B. Green books. But of course he was, he had the Gospel Hour radio program, and he also had all those books that he wrote. Curtis Hudson, why did he not ever produce a commentary set? When he wrote a bunch of books, and I've got a few of them. And, of course, he was the editor of the Sword of the Lord. I wish he'd have wrote a set of commentaries. Those would have been great. Even if they'd compiled them from his preaching or whatever, kind of like J. Vernon's, they could have done that. But sadly, no. I was, as me and Brother Jonathan was talking, I mentioned it's too bad that Pastor Sexton, Clarence Sexton, he didn't ever write his own commentaries. He wrote a bunch of books, and I've got a ton of them. They're all in my study at church. But he doesn't have a set of commentaries. That would have been wonderful. Would have been one of the greatest set of commentaries that you could get. But sadly, he didn't do that. So I did a little bit of research this evening on current commentaries from Baptist. And sadly, I couldn't find hardly anything. But there is one set that I see out there. They sell it in, I believe it was in the Swords, what do they call it? The store on the Sword of the Lord website, but it was also on the KJV website, the one that sells the KJV Bibles. And it's called Understanding the Bible by David Sorensen. He's an independent fundamental Baptist, and it's an 11-volume set. And, I'd seen that pop up a few times, but I never really looked into it because I'm not familiar with him. But, if the KJV store is selling it, it must be good. And I did watch a little video clip on it and read some things about it. And it does look really good. Unfortunately, it's $300. And, I spent about that on those Martin Lloyd-Jones books. So my funds for getting new books right now is low. So I'll have to wait until I build up some more book funds, and maybe I'll buy that set of commentaries. It's got me pretty interested in it. So we'll see. I did see that you can buy it on a USB thumb drive for $100. I don't know. I don't know if I want to do that. I like those hardback books. And so I'll probably wait and save up and get those sometime. Now, I know there's men that's written a lot of good books, but I'm talking here commentary sets, from Genesis to Revelation, some commentary on every verse, or at least, passages or something. But we need more Baptists out there writing commentary sets. Why do we have to always, read through the Puritans or through the Reformed theology and try to work our ways through those? As my brother-in-law John said, the minefields. Why do we have to do that? We shouldn't have to be that way. Now, of course, we got to be careful no matter who wrote it. Even if I wrote it, I'm going to be careful and make sure I didn't mess something up. But, and that is another thing we talked about, me and Brother Jonathan. We need to write our own commentary. And I'm sitting here complaining there's no Baptist writing commentaries, and I'm a Baptist and I have the ability to write. I'm a writer. That's what I do for a living. Is I'm a technical writer. So I do that all day, but, I don't know, maybe we'll look into it. It'd probably take years. And I still have, my thing, I usually have a screen running my retirement countdown, and I believe I've got 8 years and about 179 days or something left until I officially retire, if that's possible, or if I'm going to be working at the Walmart as a greeter. I don't know what'll happen, but, it'd take a long time to write good Bible commentaries. I don't know, maybe you know of some. If you're listening to this and you know of some good current Bible commentaries from, trusted men, they don't have to be Baptists, but I'd prefer them to be Baptists, and, really independent Baptists would be even better. But not Reformed, not Calvinist. And, that would really be nice. And so if you do, let me know, leave a mess or comment, send me an email, whatever you want to do. And, I'd like to check it out if you know of any. But anyway, this podcast was probably geared more toward pastors or preachers, but that's okay. If you're listening, I'm thankful that you're listening. Maybe there's one or two left out there, that's still there, but, I guess I'll just be quiet now because I don't have anything else to say. Plus, Mary is preparing for tomorrow's lunch, and I requested chicken casserole, and she's already getting it prepared so I can smell the sage that she puts in the dressing that goes on top of it, and the onions she cooks up, and they get translucent and they smell so good, man. It's driving me bananas. Now, she's already made honey bun cake, and we might have sampled it already, so there may not be much of it left by the time we eat tomorrow for lunch. Hopefully all the kids will be over, and we'll have a good time. But looking forward to church tomorrow. And if you don't have a church, come out and be with us at Northside Baptist Church on 201 Bernard Avenue, Knoxville, Tennessee, 37917. We're right across from the National Cemetery, not far off the interstate, not even 3/4 of a mile off the interstate. And you can find us, and we'd be glad to have you. So until next time, this is Brother Byron, and I am out.